Thank you and good afternoon. I'm New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, and it's a pleasure to be here today with such a good collection of my colleagues in government and law enforcement. And we're here to announce the results of Operation Bricktown, a major takedown of gang members and violent drug dealers operating out of the south side of Syracuse. As I say, I'm with a lot of good colleagues in law enforcement. This was very much a collaborative effort. It's a pleasure to be here with Mayor Stephanie Miner, who we've worked with on so many initiatives, and look forward to further good work in law enforcement in other areas. We have with us also Syracuse First Deputy Police Chief Joe Cecil, our longtime partner in these efforts, Major David Krause of the New York State Police, and I note that Major Krause has brought Ray, the state police dog, who was also integral to this investigation. U.S. Marshal David McNulty, another great partner here from the National Guard, Technical Sergeant Paula Carroll and Sergeant Corey White. And we also have representatives, I believe, with us today from the Onondaga County Sheriff's Office, FBI, and the Office of District Attorney Fitzpatrick. And then finally, my own team. We're here with Perry Kadenoff, who runs our Organized Crime Task Force, several of our other investigators and attorneys, and particularly I want to note Jeff Sirak, the Assistant Deputy Attorney General, who is taking the lead on the prosecution of this extremely complex case. We are here today to announce the indictments of more than 50 people for their alleged roles in a widespread heroin and cocaine ring that supplied drugs to much of the Syracuse region and multiple conspiracies to commit murder. Following a year-long investigation in partnership with the Syracuse Police Department and our other colleagues, we have charged 49 people in one 368-count indictment for allegedly selling deadly drugs throughout the region. This indictment also includes charges of conspiracy to commit murder against 5 of the defendants. And you can see the 2 different crews, all parts of the Bricktown gang, and the green arrows indicate those charged in the first conspiracy to commit murder. In a separate indictment, we've also indicted 4 other people for an alleged conspiracy to commit murder after investigators overheard their plans to shoot rival gang members. In fact, during the course of our investigation, these defendants in the second conspiracy allegedly threw loaded guns out of the window of a moving car during a police pursuit. Those 4 defendants in the second murder conspiracy are the ones down on the right, and that's charged in a separate indictment. But many of the folks that are being charged today, almost all of whom have been apprehended, were allegedly members of the notorious Bricktown gang, and they have terrorized the south side of Syracuse for more than a decade. Today, we take a big bite out of that sort of terrorist activity. The gang is known for its vicious tactics, and Syracuse police have tracked many shots-fired incidents back to this gang's turf. Investigators, as you can see here, also recovered a wide array of drugs and guns in the course of the Operation Bricktown investigation, including more than 2 kilograms of cocaine, more than 1,100 ready-to-sell envelopes of heroin, which you can see here, over 20 grams of loose heroin, a .40 caliber Glock handgun with a fully loaded 30-round magazine, a loaded 9mm Sig Sauer handgun, a loaded .45 caliber Taurus handgun, a 12-gauge shotgun, drug paraphernalia including scales, packaging, and cutting agents, a cocaine press, and other drugs, ecstasy pills, psychedelic mushrooms, and thousands of dollars in cash. We also recovered a loaded 9mm Lorson handgun with the serial number obliterated. This gun, the single gun, has been tracked back to 13 different shots-fired incidents over the last 2 years by law enforcement here in Syracuse. 13 shots-fired incidents from one single gun, and that gun has its serial number obliterated. 2 of the alleged dealers and leaders of this ring are being charged as major traffickers under a law that I sponsored when I was still in the state Senate. If convicted, they could both face life in prison. They're both identified at the top right of the chart. And as a part of this operation, as I noted before, our investigators also uncovered 2 separate plans to allegedly kill rival gang members. First, in May 2016, investigators heard several Bricktown gang members allegedly discussing plans to shoot some of their rivals. One Bricktown defendant was allegedly recorded saying, quote, "It's wartime," as they gathered for the planned attack. Those are the folks designated by the green tags. As outlined in the second indictment, in November 2016, investigators also overheard a separate and unrelated series of phone calls where 4 defendants in another gang were allegedly planning a different murder. One of these defendants allegedly told an acquaintance he was, quote, "trying to rock somebody's power out." These arrests today send an unmistakable message. Dealing death and violence in our communities is unacceptable, and that is why, in addition to these indictments, I'm proud to announce the Surge initiative today, which is an initiative to build on our collaboration with state and local law enforcement to root out particularly violent gangs and drug dealers. The Surge initiative, which stands for Suburban and Upstate Response to the Growing Epidemic, is going to focus on communities that have been hardest hit by the opioid crisis. We're going to have enhanced communication, coordination, and targeting because the numbers are stark. We have a recent report from the Rockefeller Institute of Government that tells us that drug-related deaths in Onondaga County were up 145% between 2010 and 2015. The problem is felt in areas all across the state. The rate of drug-related deaths is rising about twice as fast in the suburbs and smaller cities, and even some rural areas than in New York City, which is a change in pattern. In Westchester, the rate of drug-related deaths increased 122% between 2010 and 2015. In Erie County, during the same time period, drug-related deaths exploded by 256%. And we will not allow our communities to be ripped apart by this crisis and the violence that comes with it. So the Surge initiative is going to build on the work we're already doing and the good work our Organized Crime Task Force has done to collaborate with our colleagues in law enforcement to create an even more effective strategy and target the hardest hit communities. The work we've done in Operation Bricktown is an excellent model for the collaborations and partnerships that we are going to utilize to deal with this epidemic and to target more carefully our use of resources. Our office worked shoulder to shoulder with the Syracuse Police Department on this case from the start. I want to thank the mayor and the police here for their leadership and as well as the good work and the leadership of all of the other agencies that are represented here today. We could not do a case this large and complicated, ladies and gentlemen, without the cooperation of all of our colleagues in law enforcement. These are the kinds of cases that make a difference in people's lives. This is the kind of case that changes the sense of violence in a community, and I thank everyone for their work. I also want to make it clear that everyone indicted today is charged with serious crimes. We do not target people who are simply struggling with addiction. We have partnered with other government agencies and advocates across the state and have taken an all-levers approach to the fight against the opioid crisis, which includes enforcement, which is critical, but also treatment, interdiction, as well as education. This approach is essential and it is urgent. All told, in the past 5 years, our Organized Crime Task Force has now busted more than 30 large narcotics trafficking gangs, made more than 700 felony narcotics arrests, seized millions in cash, more than a ton of illegal drugs, and hundreds of firearms. That includes last summer's Operation Smackdown, one of the biggest drug busts in Syracuse history. Together, today's Operation Bricktown and Operation Smackdown have taken more than 120 violent drug dealers off the streets of Syracuse. These investigations will make a significant dent in the violent gangs that plague the city, and they demonstrate our commitment to working together with our colleagues to tackle this crisis with the full knowledge that we can't arrest and prosecute our way out of an opioid epidemic. That's why our office has worked hard to create a multi-layered response. We work to train and supply New York law enforcement officials with the overdose antidote naloxone, turning more than $5 million in forfeited funds into more than 50,000 naloxone kits statewide. We've also worked with the manufacturers of these drugs to ensure that first responders can have the antidote available at an affordable price. And we also recognize that opioid addiction often starts in the medicine cabinet, which is why our office introduced and happily was passed into law the iStop system, the internet system for stopping overprescribing, which went into effect a few years ago, arming doctors and pharmacists with the information they need to avoid overprescribing painkillers to those who are abusing drugs while ensuring that patients who truly need the medications get them. The State Department of Health says that doctor shopping in New York dropped 75% in the first year of the program. So we're taking a multi-layered approach to this, a multi-leveled approach, but we recognize that when you're dealing with gangs, as alleged in our indictment, with the level of violence that we saw in this particular investigation, these arrests, along with coordinated efforts of the Surge Initiative, mark a very important step towards curbing the crisis once and for all. I'm proud to work with our colleagues in law enforcement. We were targeting the most violent gangs, the communities hardest hit, the worst of the drug dealers, and this targeted effort, enhanced coordination, should serve us well. So I thank you for joining us here today, and thank you all for your excellent work. I would now like to introduce a great partner in this and many other investigations and initiatives, Mayor Stephanie Miner.
Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Attorney General and his team, as well as the rest of the law enforcement partners who we were able to work with. It is because of focused resources and responses that we can fight the scourge that violence and drug dealing has brought to our city and to other places. But make no mistake about it, we can only do that through the partnership of many different entities and agencies so that we can ensure that the people of our community live in safe and secure environments. And because of the work of the Attorney General's office, as well as the marshals, as well as the sheriffs, as well as the many dozens of police agencies, we were able to stand here today and announce that. I want to take a particular moment here and just thank the men and women of the Syracuse Police Department for the long hours that they put into this investigation and the execution of the warrants necessary to allow us to be here today. This is just a first step on making sure that these people stay off the streets, but it is an important step nevertheless, and it is one that will result in the people of our city being able to rest easier at night because these people are off the street. So thank you very much for that.